Before I begin today's class, I have to ask one question. After this research method, earlier I was planning to start with paper two, but yesterday I got some messages दो तीन आपके बैच में, so they asked me to start with physical anthropology because they believe that it is something new. आप में से कितने बायो बैकग्राउंड के नहीं, यानी 12 तक बायो नहीं पढ़ा है? Okay, and how many of your doctors? 1, 2, 3. ठीक है, 3 डॉक्टर्स हैं, अच्छा 4 डॉक्टर्स. Okay, good. पहचान लो. If you need any help, you have the doctors available. Dentist तो नहीं है कोई? हाँ, dentist. Okay, okay. तो भी पहचान लो. Okay. So this way, so do you agree that if we can start with physical anthropology? हाँ? मेरे को उनका सजेशन थोड़ा ठीक भी लगा because the thing is कि physical anthropology is altogether a new thing for you. Okay, the genetics that we will be reading, plus it will be helping you in prelims as well. Just a second, हम बात कर लें फिर आप लोग बात कर लीजिएगा. So the thing is, yes, theories will connect, but the thing is कि paper 2 what we'll be reading is caste and village, something that we already are aware or familiar with such kind of thing. Okay, उसको आप कभी भी connect कर सकते हो. But in physical anthropology, what I believe and what somebody suggested me and I found it correct also, that in the end, if I cover, say if I start by mid of January for physical anthropology, many of you will be dropping the class thinking that prelims की तैयारी है, and तो थोड़ा सा मतलब you all have like phobias for bio also, the one who have not taken bio, mainly they have not taken bio basically because they had the phobia of bio. Okay, and but what we are going to study is not bio as such but genetics. It is more like organic chemistry, nothing more than that. Okay, but एक बार को उसको समझना पड़ेगा. It's altogether say initially just like what we saw in theories, थोड़े से you have to actually develop that mentality or develop that mindset in order to understand the opinions of the scholars. In a similar manner, the first 5-6 lectures for genetics also, they are something the basic fundamentals, and if you understand those things, say the process of replication, transcription, translation, mitosis, meiosis, and DNA, chromosomes, and all those things, then things will start making sense in entire genetics. Plus, in physical anthropology, we'll be reading several fossils, okay, like Homo erectus, Australopithecus, and several archaeological, say, cultural eras like Lower Paleolithic, Middle Paleolithic, and so on and so forth. That does not actually require much explanation, but that will actually require much of your memory. Say, you will have to remember things there. So, if you allow, I don't have any issue. I can start with paper 2. I can start with physical anthropology. Physical anthropology will take around 35 lectures. Around 35 lectures. Paper 2, 40 around. नहीं नेगलेक्टेड नहीं रहेगा, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है कि नेगलेक्टेड रहेगा. ट्रस्ट मी. ओके, पेपर 2. हाँ, ओके, ठीक है. सो व्हाटएवर डेमोक्रेसी, एक बार ऑनलाइन वाला कभी देख लेते हैं. पेपर 2 में टाइम कंस्ट्रेंट तो नहीं आएगा, डेफिनेटली नहीं आएगा. I'll be covering each and every topic. Don't worry about that. Problem मुझे, see, the problem is not from my side to cover the topics. The problem comes from your side कि जल्दी खत्म करो. तो मुझे I'll have to alter my speed. I don't have any issue. मेरा काम क्या है, मेरे पास तो lectures होने पड़े हैं and I have to take the lectures. I have to discuss whatever I have learned. Okay, I don't have any issue. The problem comes when you start pressurizing me कि जल्दी खत्म करो. तो जब जल्दी खत्म करने वाला प्रेशर आता है तो then I'll have to alter my speed. Else in a normal course of say lectures, it at least take around 125 to 130 lectures to cover anthropology entirely. And in which I'll be covering more than 95% of your syllabus. More than 95%. 5% I'm saying that discretionary. Basically some factual information that I'll be giving you in the notes or something like that. But more than 95% of the syllabus can be completed in the class, and I can vouch for it that nothing else. If you do nothing else, just take my class notes and read it and write the mains exam. 90% of the questions that will be coming in the exam can be done by my class notes. I can vouch for it. I'm not bragging. I'm not boasting. But the thing is कि just अगर मैं ये syllabus खत्म कर रहा हूँ तो I can assure you that this will happen. Okay, so बस एक चीज आपसे चाहिए कि that you repose some trust in me that what I'm like doing and with whatever depth I'm covering will be more than enough. Okay, कुछ ना कुछ तो हमेशा बाहर से आ ही जाएगा, maybe one question or two question, and I cannot help accountable for that. But yes, more than 90% that can help you fetch that 290, 300 score can be done from class itself. Okay, so ठीक है, I'll be starting with paper 2 and then will be physical anthropology. Physical. Okay, ठीक है, एक बार सोच लेते हैं इसमें. बट मोस्ट प्रॉब्ली मुझे भी ऑनलाइन भी सब बोलने के फिजिकल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी शुरू करना चाहिए. So I'll be doing with physical anthropology. एक बेसिक पढ़ा के then I can again jump to say anthro say paper 2 वाला part. But the thing is कि I believe कि आप लोग को physical anthropology को थोड़ा सा digest करने में will take time. Plus इसका prelims में भी बहुत important role है. 4 questions every year in prelims, science and tech coming from genetics biotech part. So if you understand this, the chances of qualifying prelims also increases. At least 4 questions. हर साल आपको 4 क्वेश्चन बायोटेक से आ रहे हैं. Okay, and 4 क्वेश्चन, और जितने लोग मेजरली आप में से जितने लोग क्वालीफाई करेंगे और जितने लोग prelims नहीं क्वालीफाई करेंगे, you'll see that the margin is not too big. People qualify mainly by 1 or 2 marks. Majority of the people. I'm not talking about exceptional scores, but and people do not qualify mainly by 1 or 2 marks only. दो नंबर से छूट गया, एक नंबर से छूट गया. This is something majority of the population lies in that zone only. Plus minus 2. Okay, so now let's start. We're talking about field work. The first topic that we'll deal is ethics in field work. Yes. What kind of ethics? हाँ, तो ऑनलाइन स्टडी में किसके साथ रेपो बिल्डिंग होगी? ऑनलाइन कम्युनिटी के साथ. Prolonged stay, yes. Don't we have or the scholars who are studying do not have prolonged stay in the online? More like passive study as if. नहीं, लेकिन आप समझो ना कि वो आप उसको डिजिटल सेल्फ को एक अनरियल सेल्फ मान रहे हो. बट आई एम सेइंग दैट डिजिटल सेल्फ इज आल्सो ए पार्ट ऑफ यू. तो आपके डिजिटल सेल्फ से कोई इंटरैक्ट कर रहा है रेगुलरली. Yes, so online discussions के chats के कुछ emojis or say some acronyms or some slangs are very much common. People use it in order to be acceptable in that community. You have to use you have to actually know some slang, some words, only then you will be acceptable. ऐसे आप किसी भी community के part नहीं हो सकते. There are certain discussion groups, there are certain pages that you can be a part of it only and only if you basically are a part of the culture. आप उनसे बात करोगे, they will interact with you and then they will admit you into that page or that particular group. You just cannot participate anyhow. Okay, so कई सारे discussion groups are available on Facebook. कई सारे discussion groups are so which are private groups. It's not publicly available that anybody can come and participate there. कई सारे chat rooms were available. Okay, so earlier I don't know you won't be knowing or not when Google or this social media was not there very much, say Facebook and all those. So it was Orkut. Okay, and in Orkut there what used to happen was there were some private groups that were created. Okay, and then Yahoo chat box were also there. Yahoo. So वहाँ पे भी कई सारे chat groups होते थे and the access to those chat groups was available only to few people. Okay, अभी जो elite social media आ गए जैसे like Snapchat, Okay, so that also is some kind of elite groups are made there, and वहाँ पे आपको उनकी language में बात करने जैसे there is very famous आप कई सारे YouTube videos देख सकते हो that can talk about like slangs of Gen Zs. Okay, so certain words that will not make sense in आप में से कई सारे Gen Zs ही हैं, sorry, but certain words basically that make more sense in their conversation, and that अगर आप उसका literal meaning समझोगे तो it is nothing, मतलब आपको say मतलब उससे सेंस नहीं बनेगा, but they have some inferred meaning in those slangs. I was seeing one of the reel Vicky Kaushal की अभी recently, so like cap वाला कुछ word, so that means no cap, something like that. So that's a Gen Z slang. So there are several other slangs. If you understand it, only then you can actually communicate with them. Else the things what they say will mean nothing to you, or maybe you might misunderstand what they are saying. लैंग्वेज भी सीख रहे हैं, प्रोलॉन्ग स्टे भी है, मतलब a large part of your interactions you are participating in that. कई सारे WhatsApp ग्रुप बने हुए हैं, people continuously वहाँ पे 10-12 लोगों का ग्रुप है, and you see that college time में, so that group was active full day long. Okay, कुछ ना कुछ whatever is happening, everybody is posting there. So these are the prolonged stay only. आप mentally वहीं पे present हो, मतलब physical presence से कहीं ज़्यादा आपकी digital presence is also marking that opportunity was not there maybe 40-50 years back, but now digital presence is also talking about it. I have discussed this homo DS. तो अभी जो मेटावर्स कंसेप्ट आ रहा है या जो डिजिटल आइडेंटिटी इज बेसिकली डेवलपिंग, तो वहाँ पे इट माइट हैपन दैट आई माइट बी सिटिंग मे बी 20 years later if anthropology is still there in UPSC and I'm still alive and teaching anthropology. So it might happen I might be available in my home, and then I'll be creating a digital avatar of me, and then 3D projection of that avatar. I'll be taking some class there, and you might feel that somebody is walking, somebody is taking class here. Okay, this might happen. Why to stay in the gas chamber? Okay, when I can actually take the class from my place. Okay, and maybe आप भी ऐसा कुछ ऐसा जैसे फेसबुक का जो whatever device name is that, so आप बोलेगा कि घर पे बैठे हो and I will be feeling you are sitting in front of me, you will be feeling that you are sitting in the class and you are seeing the teacher in front of you. So that will be happening. So digital presence को आप बिल्कुल भी इसे negate नहीं कर सकते, that it's somewhat less than the physical presence of an individual. Completely वहाँ पे physical presence के जैसा ही. Okay, that's the new world. You have to accept this fact that the major content, the communities are not built here. The communities are now most of the communities are at online level. तो आप communities को study करना है तो आपको online जाना ही पड़ेगा. Else यहाँ पे communities कितनी है? Means majority of the people who are your friends right now, आपके उनका face to face interaction कितना है? I think negligible. And majority of the interaction, even your friends here also, will be on WhatsApp, Telegram, or maybe some other social media accounts. Okay, or majority of the social media accounts, मतलब जो interaction होगा बाद में, suppose when this class is over, so what will happen? You will be posting some photographs, some videos, something like that, likes, comments, and then discussions on those photographs. That will be your interaction that will be left with these people. Okay, rather than daily calls or something, daily interaction. That's what you need. Okay, so ethics in fieldwork. It is odd that this is something थोड़ा सा आपको it might not be seeming okay to you, because what happens is that we have perceived anthropology as a study of tribals. Okay, and that's why these kind of trends that is emerging in a discipline basically might not make sense to you, because the older image or the traditional image of anthropology is something very much different. Okay, but a discipline, in order to stay relevant with the changing time, definitely will have to change its methodologies and methods also. And that is what anthropology has done. That things have to change, the methods have to change, the methodologies have to change in order to stay relevant. Else, the problem is in this globalized world, what will happen? The societies that we have imagined, like simple societies, they hardly exist. They have been globalized. They have been in the cultural context, contact with other societies, the larger societies, and that's why there is a kind of homogenization that is happening. People speaking English, people having some basic type of food, some similar type of clothing all across the world. Okay, some kind of homogenization is happening, and that's why maybe a decade later or maybe 2-3 decades later, the simple societies may or may not exist at all. Okay, अब उस केस में anthropology अगर वहीं तक सीमित रहेगी, as a discipline it will collapse, and that's why anthropology has broadened its scope by including some other communities which are basically not something that we have imagined as communities in the traditional sense, but something that is happening right now with the modern population. Okay, ethics in fieldwork. So here, the problem is when the fieldwork is actually conducted, any activity that is done by the scholar or the researcher might have an impact on the one who are being studied. Okay, and हो सकता है the scholar might go there for some academic knowledge, for some academic information, but the activity that he has done might completely lead to the destruction of the society. Suppose I went to a particular place and I found that these people, they are so simple that they do not value gold. Okay, the gold is flowing in their river, or there is a large gold mine over there, and these people just throw out the gold and they can exchange gold for glasses. I had some glass, I gave it to them, they exchanged gold for it, and that is something that was that's a story. God must be crazy if you have seen that movie. So in that also, it's shown so simple that they find a Coca-Cola bottle and they start worshiping that god, because that was something extraordinary object that they have seen in their life. Okay, metals and all those things that were not important. Now, if I write this research, it will immediately create a rush towards that area. People will start exploiting that area, killing those people, controlling the resources, and so on and so forth. So my research, academically, actually, it might have generated some kind of curiosity, but ultimately had led to the downfall of the society that was studied. So ultimately, the बेकार चीज करके मैंने उस community को expose कर दिया towards the predatory forces, and that led to the decline or say the entire downfall of the community. So this is the problem, and that's why ethics that should be inculcated in every fieldwork that is conducted by the scholars. Now, with respect to ethics, there are 4 major aspects that should be taken. The first one is confidentiality. Okay, so confidentiality means that the informant should be kept confidential. Maybe he might be discussing some very important aspects, some aspects that people do not want to disclose to the society or to the larger society. So some informant, if he is telling you and you disclose the name of the informant, he's gone. Maybe अगली बार फिर उसकी खबर आती है that that informant is dead. So confidentiality should be there. Moreover, confidentiality of the entire community, if required, also should be there. Basically, if you write about some village, some particular tribe, about their practice, about the resources available there, that might actually lead to attack of the people, okay, or incursion of the outsiders into their area. And that's why sometimes confidentiality of the entire group or community has to be maintained. And this was something that was done post-independence. When post-independence, several village studies were done. So in order to protect the identity of the villages, the scholars used pseudonyms for the village. Pseudonyms means false names. They created some village names and they actually wrote about that village. Now, what actually happens? This fact was relatively suppressed at that point of time. So fact was suppressed कर दिया गया. But right now, what happens? I got to know about this initially when I used to search for the study of certain villages by some scholars, and then I used to find that these villages do not exist. Some other villages coming up, some other villages coming up then and there. So then I realized that, or then I found that several scholars post-independence, when they went for some village studies, खास करके when they were talking about some kind of sensitive practices like untouchability, sati, or such kind of practices happening in villages, they never quoted the name of the village. Rather, they used pseudonyms. Okay, just to maintain the confidentiality of the informant and also the entire group or the community. Okay, the second one is consent. It is also very important that actually says that the people who are being studied, their opinion also matters, whether they want to get studied, whether they want to be exposed to the outer world, but they do not. Okay, just my curiosity does not give me the right to study or write about anybody. I'm curious, it's okay. But suppose if I'm curious, how much money your father has? Okay, he's very rich, and I believe I'm very curious to know that how much money is in the bank account or how much property each of the students in my class has. Does that curiosity gives me the right to know that how much money or property that each one of you have? No, definitely not. So suppose if I'm curious about a particular community, does that give me the right to know about that community or to go and live in that community and study that? No, definitely no. It only depends upon whether that community is ready to disclose what they consider as their own culture to me. Majority of the time, this consent was not taken into consideration because the communities that were studied were situated in the colonial land, and there was hence a power equation. अब ruler की तरफ से कोई आया है, somebody who is the ruler from the ruling community has come there, so they do not have any authority, they do not have any right to reject also, and that's why the consent was never taken into consideration. Now, when the consent was not there or consent was not a part of the equation, what will happen? Do you think that they would behave naturally? That if they are very much fighting, if they are very much doing some kind of things, they would definitely see this person ki ye jaake British ko bata dega, and this practice might come into the limelight, this might be gone, this might be certain, and so on and so forth, and that would bring some kind of changes, and that's why the picture that would have been painted would not be true or authentic. Okay, so consent is very much important. The third one, utility of study. So what is utility? That means the study definitely is to increase the knowledge base of the people of the world, definitely. But that study should also be beneficial to the people who are being studied. That it should create awareness among the outsiders. It should be creating some kind of sensitivity among the outsiders. So that is how that study should be benefiting the people who are being studied. आप उनको study कर रहे हो just for maybe adding some more feathers to your hat, or maybe just to add some more pointers in your resume, nothing more than that. So then that study is not at all having any kind of utility for the community that is being studied. Okay, so that's why this study that is being done should be useful for the one who are studied as well. Okay, and the last one, knowledge creation and its transmission. So how that knowledge is transmitted, in what way or in what manner? Okay, that also matters. Okay, so initially the travelogues and several scholars, in order to actually make their studies viral, what they used to do was they used to use sensational phrases, sensational ideas, sensational case studies that should create curiosity, that should create some kind of excitement. For example, just like how the movie trailers are made, that would create some kind of curiosity in you. Yeah, movie बढ़िया लग रही है, but बाद में पता चलता है कि trailer ही था बस. Okay, and rest of the movie was completely bad. जो बता रहा था वो trailer नहीं बता दिया. Okay, so this is how some sensationalization happens. Some extraordinary fight scene will be shown to you, some extraordinary intimate scenes will be shown to you, and then basically that creates some kind of curiosity. Okay, and that is how this knowledge can also be used to create curiosity or present the particular community in a very sensational manner. TRP बढ़ाने के लिए. And that will definitely not be presenting the clear-cut picture or credible picture of the society that is being studied. And hence, the society should be presented in a fair manner and in a true picture rather than using some kind of sensational phrases just to attract or catch the attention of the reader. Okay. Now, बहुत सारी ऐसी knowledge clips भी होती है. Even UPSC's videos you must be seeing on YouTube. Now, most of them they are based on clickbaits. Okay, that is how many views. That does not depend upon the content of that particular video. That actually depends upon the title and the thumbnail of that video. Okay, the thumbnail, if it is like very much attracting, score 150 plus in prelims, guaranteed, money back guaranteed. Okay, join this program, nahi hua to money back. Now, such kind of thing, and छोटा सा नीचे लिखा हुआ terms and condition apply. Okay, so that particular clickbait will immediately attract you. 150 की बात कर रहे हैं तो 70% दिलाई देगा. So let's just watch it, and you'll find that immediately that 10 lakh views or 5 lakh views of that video actually immediately happens. Okay, so such kind of clickbait should not be used. Rather, the society or the knowledge should be presented in a fair manner. So these are the 4 major ethical issues with respect to fieldwork. Besides this, researchers face ethical dilemmas while conducting fieldworks. The ethical issues can crop up. The moment a researcher decides on a topic. The topic might be controversial. For the people who are to be studied. The topic might be controversial for the people who are to be studied. Moreover, the impact of the study may be very high, and not beneficial for the people. Next point. Some basic ethical issues involved are. First one, confidentiality. Okay, right. The researcher or anthropologist should take utmost care of his or her behavior in the field and also in the representation. He or she should protect the identities of the people, of the informant, or community sometimes, or community in some case. Okay. For example, several scholars post-independence post-independence, use pseudonyms for village, they study. Use pseudonyms for village, they study. Okay, next point. आपको ये चीज और भी बहुत ज्यादा दिखती होगी आज के न्यूज़पेपर में. यू माइट बी सीइंग सेवरल न्यूज़ रिलेटेड टू ट्राइब्स, बट द एंटायर न्यूज़ विल बी गिवन, बट द ट्राइब नेम विल नॉट बी मेंशनड. यू स्ट्रगल कि आखिर में ट्राइब कौन सा, ये तो पता चले. द एंटायर न्यूज़ इज टॉकिंग अबाउट समथिंग दैट इज हैपनिंग अमंग द ट्राइब्स, बट द नेम ऑफ द ट्राइब इज एब्सेंट completely. They do not talk about it. Okay, that is again to maintain their confidentiality, just not to present them in a particular light. They do not want to do so. So they will not mention the name of the tribe also. You will have to do an extensive research to say, just to locate the area in which that news was discovered, and then particularly the tribe that is living in that area. Then you come to zero down that this is the tribe that is involved in this activity. Okay, so next one, consent. Consent. The researcher should first seek. The researcher should first seek permission. Should first seek permission from respondents to probe into their lives and society. To probe into their lives and society. Third, utility of the study or utility. The knowledge created or gathered should be utilized in a way which is productive for the people. And last, knowledge and its transmission. Right? Knowledge reaching public domain should add to the existing knowledge. It should not be presented in a sensational manner. To add to existing knowledge, it should not be presented in a sensational manner. Okay. Now the last thing related to fieldwork, problems or its limitation. Okay, or some challenges associated with fieldwork. That although fieldwork is said to be one of the rite of passage of any anthropologist, but the thing is that it's not that easy that you can actually just decide and do the fieldwork. Okay, and that's why there are certain limitations of it and also certain challenges associated with fieldwork. The first major challenge, unavailability. Of role for anthropologists in the native society. So if there is no available role or no particular place for that, the society is, say, very closed, very much traditional, orthodox. In that case, the anthropologist, it will become very difficult for that anthropologist to actually enter into that society or actually get a role. Okay, now it's like simple societies, we assume they are very much open, they are very much free to talk about sex, to talk about so and so things, and that is some general perception that has been created in our minds with respect to the tribe. But that's not really the case. Moreover, if I talk about certain societies like, say, Indian Hindu society, Hindu joint family, okay, that's a very close affair. Nobody outside the joint family actually know about the internal affairs, what is going on in the family. Okay, that's a very close affair. Or say a Pakistani society, or say so several anthropologists, they try to gather some kind of information in Afghanistan and Iraq and various other places where they use their specialized say skills to enter into the society. But the problem that they faced was the acceptability was zero, because they had different physical appearances, different kind of languages, different kind of behaviors. That is completely not matching with the kind of society that Pakistani, Iraqi or Afghanistani families have. And they were not able to enter into those societies together or have some kind of first-hand information. Okay, so this is the first one, unavailability of role. Second one is basically the anthropologist getting influenced by the opinion of elites. So any society which is basically stratified, if you go and study that society, so stratification, that means anybody who is outside or coming to study definitely is more educated, will be contacting first whom? The elites. कोई आएगा बाहर से तो गांव के मुखिया से बात करेगा first, because he is the one who will allow whether to go for the study or not. And when he is the one who is the first person to contact, in that case, majority of the study will be influenced by the opinion that the elites hold. Okay, in such cases, the elitist opinion might be presented in the study, and that is what actually used to happen when initial caste studies were being done. So initial caste studies that were done in India by British scholars, they all were influenced by the opinion of the Brahmins, because they were considered to be the most learned people of India, and they were considered to be the one who were aware about these kind of systems, and they presented their opinion that caste is something in which in everywhere in India the Brahmins or the priests are at the top of the hierarchy. Okay, they presented this Brahminical position. Okay, that is how the idea of caste originally developed. Elite opinion. But later on, some scholars started to conduct the study. They entered into the fieldwork ground level, but then they found that it's not necessary that the Brahmin will always be at the top of caste hierarchy all over the world, so all over India. Okay, so some places thereby one scholar came up with the idea of dominant castes. Okay, like Yadavs, Jats, Reddis, Kappus, Patels. So who were dominant and having a greater hierarchy as compared to Brahmins or priests in their own locality. Okay, so initial knowledge was given by the elites, the priests, and in that knowledge that was created, they always projected themselves at the top of hierarchy, and that's why a distorted view of caste was actually created. We'll be talking about it in paper 2. That is Varna model versus Jati model. So Brahmins presented the Varna model of caste, in which the society is divided into 4 categories: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, with Brahmin always at the top. Then came the Jati model, in which the society is divided into several smaller jatis, not the 4 Varnas, several small jatis, and these jatis, they have flexible ranking. They can rise up or fall down depending upon the material conditions. Maybe democracy, electoral politics came, and that's why rise of Yadav happened in UP. Okay, or Green Revolution and land reform, rise of Jats in Haryana. Okay, rise of Khatris in Punjab, Green Revolution. Okay, so these are not Brahmins, not their Kshatriyas, but rather the caste that would be included in either Vaishyas or Shudras, and yet having a dominant position. But initial knowledge, Brahmins will create. So that is the opinion of elites. Okay, the third one the society is divided into two rival groups. Okay, so if that happens, suppose if the society is divided into A versus B. In that case, the opinion of A about any social phenomena will completely be opposite of what opinion does B have. Whose opinion has to be written? Now, what will be written is the one with whom the anthropologist comes in contact for the first time. Okay, so opinion of A versus opinion of B, so that might create some kind of challenges. The last one, sorry, the next one, that is that anthropologist should study the society unobtrusively. That is, he should not bring any change in the society. Now, this is very difficult. Suppose if you enter into the society, it might happen that आपकी entry ही that might bring some kind of, it's very difficult actually to protect the society as it is. The moment you enter there, उनके behavior में कुछ बदलाव आ जाएगा. They create some kind of shields in front of you. Okay, and at the same time, being a field worker, you also have to make sure that you maintain your objectivity. आपको एक रोल भी लेना है. At the same time, you have to maintain your objectivity. Now, you might get emotionally involved. You can become the change agent that can become the problem. Okay, so just like this, the aim of the anthropologist is to study or observe society. Is to study or observe society unobtrusively. Unobtrusively. That is without bringing any change in it. So that his presence does not causes any distortion. So that his presence does not causes any distortion. But at the same time, he needs to involve himself. He needs to involve himself as much as possible. He needs to involve himself as much as possible in the social phenomena. So इतना भी नहीं इन्वॉल्व करना कि सोसाइटी में चेंज आ जाए, बट इतना तो इन्वॉल्व करना है ताकि he can understand. That's a dilemma. How much to enter, how much to penetrate, how much to interact with them, so that you're able to closely observe, but at the same time not able to bring any kind of change. Okay, that's the biggest dilemma. Next one is the biases and opinions of the anthropologist. Okay, so his own biases, his own opinions, his own socialization definitely alters the response that he would give during the fieldwork, or how he would interpret a particular phenomena happening around him in a particular fieldwork. And the last one is the problem of culture shock. What is culture shock? It simply means that when a person actually lands up in a very alien culture, he would experience a feeling of alienness or awkwardness. That is what is called as culture shock. That you are a vegetarian, pure vegetarian, and then you go to say US or maybe China, and you find that he achar mein bhi beef khate, and that is the biggest culture shock for you. But how can actually somebody eat pickles also, that too made of some meat, or in the morning, afternoon, they do not discriminate? Okay, pure non-vegetarians. Okay, that might happen. So the thing is, it might create some kind of culture shock over to you. Okay, now that culture shock was actually written secretively by Malinowski in his diary. The culture shock that he experienced while entering into the Topian society, the way they were living, that was completely alien to him. And in that case, that culture shock that a particular person or anthropologist experience might influence the way he represents the other society. Okay, so this is all about the limitations. Now we'll see the tools of data collection. What are the major tools? How to make the study useful for the community without bringing any positive change into it. Okay, here, आपने आधी फीस दी है क्या? आधी क्लास अटेंड करके क्या फायदा? So the thing is, what actually happens that if you want to make this study useful for the community, in that case, the knowledge that you have collected, okay, आप अगर आप उसको truly represent कर पा रहे हैं, say not producing any kind of image, okay, then it might actually bring some changes for you. Now the thing that the student is asking is a kind of dilemma that is there. Okay, when you are talking about that the study should be bringing some kind of positive impact, this brings a dilemma in anthropology that this is called as applied or action anthropology. That the scholar should be bringing some kind of positive changes in the community, should be benefiting the community. But that leads to a dilemma that anthropology जब study कर रहा है, so he should make sure that anthropology should make sure that there is no change in the society as well. At the same time, you're talking that your study should be bringing some kind of positive change, should be benefiting the people. So that's why this debate goes on, that it's against the nature of discipline of anthropology. But the scholar ultimately say that any discipline that we study, be it science, be it social sciences, it's useful as long as it benefits the humanity. Okay, any knowledge is relevant only and only if it brings some kind of positive changes in the society. If that knowledge is not helping anyone, then that knowledge is of no use. Okay, and that's why ultimately whatever knowledge we are creating in anthropology, other than academic knowledge, it should have some kind of positive impact on the community being studied in general, in specific, and overall on the mankind in general. How mankind in general, basically, that will be making people more sensitive about the cultural differences. Okay, more accommodative rather than becoming very much rigid, and then creating some kind of awareness about varieties of the culture, varieties of behavior, that will also increase the acceptability quotient of the society. जैसे कि हम लोग acceptability quotient after reading anthropology will increase definitely more. But before that, so a lot of things. So initially when we're reading the theories, so I can see many faces when I talk about certain societies where these kind of practices happen, and you believe, like, there are smiles on your faces, some people start laughing. The problem is this is not our fault. We have been a part of a society which actually assumes that one way of life is the best possible way, and any kind of alternatives, we feel that it's like funny, it's like ridiculous, it's a kind of deviant way of life. But gradually we'll see so many examples of the way of life that is completely distinct from us, and that will make us believe that there are multiple ways of living, and everyone has their own limitations, some benefits, some advantages, some disadvantages. Okay, and that makes us more acceptable. So, and that will make you a better administrator as you will be moving across India in several districts. So you'll find that कि एक कहावत है जैसे भारत में कोस कोस पे बदले पानी, हर 4 कोस पे पानी. That is, at every mile there is change of water, and every 4 miles the language change or the culture changes. That is the diversity of culture in India. And you will be finding a lot of cultural differences just moving one district in the same state. Okay, जो जिस तरीके से एक district के लोग रह रहे हैं वहाँ पे दूसरे district में there is a, but if there is low acceptability, in that case you will never be able to adjust, or you will never be able to build a rapport with the people, and you will never be able to become a good administrator there. Okay, so acceptability will definitely increase as we understand that there is no single way of life. There can be multiple ways of life. Okay, and that kind of knowledge will be generated by these kind of fieldworks. Okay, now tools of data collection. We'll be seeing the first one, that is observation. I'll be just giving some brief overview about it. आपको handout चाहिए, nothing much to explain, and I'll be just talking about overall ऊपर से. You can just make some short notes out of it. Observation simply is the study of, or say, precise viewing and understanding a particular social phenomena. Just you go there, you view the phenomena. There can be two types of observation. One is uncontrolled observation, and the second one is controlled observation. Uncontrolled observation simply means that whatever phenomena is happening, it's happening at its own pace, at its own way, in its own way. You do not have any influence on the pace and the course of that action that is being done. Okay, how the society is functioning. You just go there and you're just a passive observer, just writing about it, not actively influencing the course of the events that are happening. That is the uncontrolled one. So, for example, you basically go to a society, the society functions as it is, and you just are a passive observer. Just like if you remember Clifford Geertz, when he went there to study the Balinese cockfight or in the Bali village of Bali, everybody was behaving as if nobody is there. He was completely invisible. Okay, nobody actually talked to him. Nobody actually bothered whether he exists or does not exist. Okay, that is an uncontrolled observation that he was making. Okay, now this uncontrolled observation can be of two types. One is participant observation. You basically become a part of the community whom you are studying. And second is non-participant observation. Okay, so you study the community as an outsider rather than becoming a part or acting like a native. You study the community as an outsider. Okay, so here in participant observation, there are certain observation. There are certain advantages that an individual experiences by doing participant observation. Okay, so what are the advantages? So basically, you develop or can create a true picture of the society. True picture as if you are just like the native. Okay, and that's why your presence does not alter their behavior. That is, the true picture of the society can be created. Okay. Moreover, in participant observation, several info which might not be available to the outsider will be visible to you. So, some kind of information, for example, related to sexuality, related to magical practices, black magic, some kind of things that people do not discuss with any outsider, that can be accessed by the participant observation. Okay, so I'll be talking about a scholar like very relevant in paper 2. So he basically did a participant observation in India in several tribes like Baigas, Moria, Koons, and all, to an extent that he married one of the girls. Okay, two girls actually, one after the other. So Leela, and the second girl was Kosi. Okay, and with Leela he had children also. So whose name was Jawaharlal Kumar, because he was very much a good friend of Nehru, and based on that he named his first child as Jawaharlal Kumar. Okay, and then later on he had 3 children from the other woman, that is Kosi, and I think Leela. So who he named as Nakul, Ashok, Sehdev, something like this. These kind of names that he used. Okay, now just by marrying that woman, he was able to understand the sexuality or the sexual aspects of the life of these tribes. And the scholar will be talking about, like in Unit 3, economic anthropology, there is a scholar Kenneth Good. So he also married a woman, Yurima, from Yanomamis, Brazil. So he stayed there for 12 years, did participant observation, married a woman, had a child. Okay, Yurima. So that is the kind of information, that is the kind of immersion that the participant observants might have with respect to the study of a particular society. Okay, and with this, they are able to access those information that might not be available to the outsider. They will never discuss this kind of information to any of the outsiders. Okay, next one, that there are certain limitations of it. The first one is like a lot of time taking and costly. So 12 साल का stay या 3 साल का stay, who is going to fund it? So that is time taking and costly affair. Moreover, the problem comes when an anthropologist occupies an important role there. In this case, two problems might happen. He might get emotionally attached, and the moment he gets emotionally attached, he will not be presenting the true picture of that society. He cannot write true. He'll be like writing in a glorified manner. He cannot. If there is something that might present the society in a bad manner, he will not discuss about it because he is emotionally attached. Okay. The second one, he might become a change agent because he is occupying a very important role. He will bring some kind of, or he'll start bringing some kind of changes in the society. The change agent. Okay. So these are some of the limitations. There are a lot of limitations, but these are some of them. You can actually just, you understood what is participant observation. Just make a short note out of it. Okay. Next one. Non-participant. Okay, in non-participant, what actually happens is you are acting as an outsider. Actually, don't confuse as participant observation as field work and non-participant observation as something else. Field work can have both the methods. So one way is to do the field work to act as a participant there. Okay, enter into the society, take up some role, and act as a native. The other one is like act as an outsider also. Okay, again, you are still doing the field work. You are setting the community in the natural habitat only. Okay, but you are not immersing yourself or not acting like a native. Okay, that's a non-participant observation, acting as an outsider. So whatever the limitations are here will be the advantages of that non-participant observation. So it's less time taking, less costly. Plus, it does not, the anthropologist does not get emotionally attached. Anthropologist does not act as a change agent because he's not acting as a native. That is the advantage of it. But whatever is the advantage here will act as a disadvantage. So as an outsider, he might actually alter the behavior of the people. They might not be opening up to the not opening up to him. He will not be able to develop a rapport. Okay, and several information that is very much privy to the people, very much secret, they might not be discussing about it. Okay, that is the case of non-participant observation. For example, like Clifford Geertz, he also did a field work among Balinese or studied Javanese funeral, but that was a field work with non-participant observation. He never acted as a native. Okay, so this is participant versus non-participant. Now, the other one, that is controlled observation. Yes. Sorry. Now, the other one, that is controlled observation. Yes. Versus non-participant. Now, the other one, that is controlled observation. Yes. Sorry. Non-participant. Non-participant में तो कोई role नहीं मिलेगा because they're not taking up any kind of acting as a native. But participant observation में, say for example, Kenneth Good, very relevant, or Malinowski, they would be given a particular hut. They will be living the life just like a native, rule as if he an individual with a status in the society. Okay, so for example, Elvin married Kosi, or Envil married Leela, or Kenneth Good married Yorima. They automatically are the part of a family. They are now as a tribe. अब उनका status हो गया कि इसका दामाद है, इसका husband है, इसका जीजा जी है, something like this. So that status is now available to him. That role and expected behavior out of that status. No. After that also it was non-participant. He never took up or lived there and acted as one of the Balinese individual in cockfight. He never participated in the cockfight. He never raised the cock. He never had any status. He only interacted with the people. Okay, but only thing was that police incident helped him establish rapport with the people. That's it. That rapport was done. But other than that, he never learned their language. He never lived there, acting as one of the villagers. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. Okay. हाँ बताओ. पार्टिसिपेंट के तो हम आप बताओ. इंडियन वाले बताओ तो डाल ही सकते हैं. उसके अलावा सैटरडे को टेस्ट है. Malinowski. He was the one who basically introduced this idea of participant observation. He lived there in the Tobrianders, had a village, learned their language almost for 2 long years. He lived there. So the method of participant observation was introduced by him only. Okay. Now, the next one, I don't think he take this. One more thing, I'll just take 1 or 2 minutes. Many of you might be thinking to skip this test. Okay. The faces speak it all. See, this test is not at all a reflection of what you will be doing in mains. Okay. Don't take this test very seriously that agar ye अच्छा नहीं हुआ तो पता नहीं क्या हो जाएगा. Nothing of that sort. This test will actually remove your phobia from answer writing. Say from that chapter. Once you have written a test, okay, of that particular chapter, कितना भी बुरा याद है, अगर आपने क्लास की है, कुछ याद है, नाम याद है, okay, बाकी कुछ कहानियां याद है. Just come here, try to write whatever you remember. Once you basically do so, you basically spend 3 hours in a stretch thinking about those theories. You will miss out a lot of things. You will actually hit out on certain things. You will write something. But what will happen? That in these 3 hours, you will churn out all those information that you have gathered in the last 2 months multiple times. And that churning out will not stop even after 3 hours. That will stay in your mind for at least 1 week. A lot of times you will start getting the flashback. यार उस क्वेश्चन में ये लिखा था. This will happen. And once you experience this, that phobia for theories will go away forever. आपको theories से फिर डर लगेगा नहीं. अब free हो गया. That once you have churned out that information, the next time when you will be writing the test, a lot of times your brain has given you these kind of flashbacks that this should have been written, that should have been written. That will stay in your mind for a long period. But if you do not write this test, that phobia of answer writing or test writing will stay with you as long as you do not write the test. And I'm telling you कि ये 2-3 महीने ही है जितने आप टेस्ट लिख पाओगे लिखोगे. After that you will slowly start preparing for. Time will never come. Okay. We keep on procrastinating that कल तैयार हो जाएगा तो लिखेंगे. Next day I'll be having more knowledge. I'll be perfect in this knowledge and I'll be writing it. But the problem is, this is the 2 basic traps that you UPSC aspirant actually face. One is the sense of completion and the second is the sense of perfection. And if you are in both of these traps, nobody can save you. Because if you feel that you complete होगा तब करेंगे, तब लिखेंगे. It will never happen. Even if I say that you have to appear for 2030, then also if 5 years down the line, I'll ask you that syllabus will never be complete. Because the nature of the exam is not of that kind of syllabus like board exam here, there is one book you have to read it and you can revise it multiple times. No. The nature of the exam is very much dynamic and that's why there will never be a completion. Okay, कुछ ना कुछ तो हमेशा रह जाएगा. So don't fall into the first trap of sense of completion. जितना आता है उतने से ही निकलेगा एग्जाम, उससे ज्यादा की जरूरत नहीं. Okay, and that is how you have to train your mind. That since you cannot complete ever, so whatever I know has to be used in the exam, I have to train myself to use that information to extract maximum marks. That is the sense of completion. इस trap से बचो. And second, sense of perfection. I cannot write model answers type answers, and that's why I'll not be writing it at all. So अचानक से nothing will happen that there will be a magic wand and कोई abla kadabra करेगा and then you will be writing the answer just like the model answer. No, if you want to run, if you want to participate in the sprint, what will you do? You have to practice running. The first run will always be the poorest performance of all the times, and the second will be relatively better, second most poorest, and the last run will be the best one. But if you don't run, or you run in the very this दिन competition उसी दिन run करेंगे तो क्या होगा? That will be the poorest performance of all. So that is the only performance you did. So don't fall into the sense of perfection. Keep writing. Eventually, जब तक main आएगा, so you will be giving your best performance there. So don't evaluate yourself here कि यहाँ पे number कम आ रहा है नहीं आ रहा. It is not the exam that you are preparing for. But before that exam, practice it so many times, write so many answers that the mains seems to you like a mock test. टेस्ट लिख दिए कि मेंस की तो कोई वैल्यू नहीं रही, ठीक है, एक बार और टेस्ट क्लास से जाके दे आएंगे, दैट्स इट, दैट शुड बी द फीलिंग, एंड द मोमेंट दैट यू स्टार्ट फीलिंग लाइक दिस, आपका मेंस होने से कोई रोक नहीं सकता, ओके, बिकॉज़ इन द मेंस व्हेन आई विल बी when you'll be appearing for mains, the first major problem is not writing anything extraordinary. First major problem is paper finish. जब तक लिखा ही नहीं है तब तक पेपर फिनिश तो बहुत इट्स लाइक अ ड्रीम कम ट्रू, ओके, एंड आई आल्सो यूज्ड टू थिंक अबाउट इट दैट कि जब अच्छा आंसर लिख पाऊंगा तब लिखूंगा, अभी तक मेरे को याद नहीं है, आई कैन नॉट रिमेंबर, आई कैन नॉट रिकॉल, आई कीप ऑन प्रोक्रास्टिनेटिंग एंड दैट कॉस्टेड मी 2 attempts, okay, and once I practiced last 10 years my immediate score went by 122 marks in mains, once एक ही साल में आंसर में 200 से 324 कदम था, and what I did was nothing new to be read, nothing new information to be added, only last 10 years paper to be practiced, और कुछ भी नहीं, and once I practice in that exam like environment, any unit that you practice आपका उसका डर खत्म हो जाए, you will immediately start recalling it, मतलब आप किसी भी टेस्ट में देखो, एक बार उस टॉपिक का टेस्ट दे दिया, हिम्मत करके चले गए, तो वो डर सच में खत्म हो जाएगा, you will never have that fear or phobia of that particular topic, and that's why I request every one of you, come here, write the test no matter how much you are prepared, and attempt all the questions, okay, ऐसा नहीं कि बस अपना नाम लिख के चले गए, कुछ याद है, जो भी याद आ रहा है गलत ही लिखोगे ना, इधर का उधर लिख दोगे, whatever you remember just write it down, don't judge, I'll not be announcing your scores, and your score hardly matters, okay, what matters is you came here, you actually subjected your brain to that experience where you are churning out all the information that you have gathered in the last 2 months, आप मेरी शक्ल देखने यहाँ पे नहीं आए हो, so whatever you have learned from this class in the last 2 months you should be using that so churning out that information that it becomes active in your active mind, say that should not go to your subconscious mind, and once you do so things will start falling into your places, say ये cultural evolutionism का idea है, this is the idea of diffusionism, this is the idea of personality, that will automatically start falling into the places and you will immediately be able to recall maybe for the next time, but अगर आप पहला तो ये करना पड़ेगा, तो एक कहावत है बिना मरे स्वर्ग नहीं मिलेगा, everybody desires heaven but nobody wants to die, so if you want the heaven you have to die first, okay, so you have to go through this process, only then it is possible that you will be doing good in mains, without this it's very difficult, so please I humbly request आप लोग सबके सब टेस्ट जरूर लिखना, no matter what happens, okay, no matter how poorly you perform doesn't matter at all, but what you will get after the test, that will be something that cannot be replaced by anything else, okay, that's what is more important. So coming back to the tools of data collection, now the second tool, yes, पेपर डिस्कस कर लेते हैं, prepare for unexpected, जो भी होगा 3 घंटे सबको मिलेंगे, okay, I believe अभी actually the thing is I have not made the paper right now, so I'll be most probably 200 marks का होगा, 12-13 questions होंगे, okay, 3 hours for it, 12-13 questions means 20, 15 and 10 mark combined करके, okay, the next one, अच्छा, controlled observation, so here what actually happens that the researcher controls the external environment and then gathers some information, okay, so for example if you remember Photo boy, what did, she actually subjected some psychological tests, so that is a controlled observation in which the data was being collected, okay, so psychological test on the alloys or drawings or dreams of alloys, so that is the case of controlled observation, but more or less controlled observation is used in physical anthropology, like we'll be talking about it, twin cities, okay, so we'll be talking about these twin cities that we'll be doing in genetics and all, so jahan pe certain genetic effects can be understood or effects of certain genes can be understood when the individual is subjected to some controlled environment, okay, some changes in the environment will be done in order to understand the change in the genetic expression, how the genes actually respond in that particular kind of environment, so that is the twin cities, that is controlled observation, okay. Now the next one is interview, so interview is a conversation which is usually face to face, and this is conversation with a purpose. Now this is very important, it's not any conversation but a conversation with a purpose, that is to extract information about a particular issue, ऐसे नहीं कि एक दूसरे से टिक टैक करें, that can also be interview, any conversation नहीं, but a conversation with a purpose usually that has face to face interactions, okay. Now interview actually has some advantages, okay. The first major advantage is that it can collect data pertaining to sensitive areas, you can ask about it and the people they might answer it, so but collect data related to sensitive areas, then it can collect data related to some habits, traits, qualities of the people, okay. Although ये सब टूल पूछे नहीं जाते हैं, but still just for the worst scenario if UPSC के पास कोई सवाल नहीं बचा, they might ask a 10 mark question on interview, but they're not being asked, they won't be asking interview method in say anthropological research and all, okay. Now with interview you can understand social changes with time, so any kind of changes that have happened in the society you can understand those social changes as per the detailed experience of the person who is giving you the interview, he can actually tell you that what actually happened, or you can have the historical knowledge of that particular society, okay. Next it can help to understand or better understand the opinions of the people, okay, certain opinions of the people, okay. Next problem is the issues with the interview, so it basically time taking, not costly but time taking, because if you keep on interviewing every individual, okay, it's very long, okay. Second problem is like difficult to analyze data, difficult to analyze data. So different people were talking about different issues, and that's why how to analyze the data, how to compile it, how to codify that data, and how to come up with a general idea. That's very difficult because the one problem is that opinions of the people are very much different. Okay, then the problem might come with respect to the questions that, or there can be a problem in conducting the interviews. The questions are not culturally relevant, or they might not be culturally specific. So if you ask some question, the other person gets offended. Ye kya puch raha hai? Okay, so then in that case, the interview might get disrupted. The data that might come out will be very much distorted data. So this actually happens. So in the interview, the scholar or the person who is actually conducting the interview, he has to go through a process of first rapport building. Then second, he has to ease the person who is supposed to give the interview so that the true self comes out. You will also be going for this process when you will be going to interview in UPSC. So initially they ask lighter questions. Okay, so one who is a good interviewer, he will definitely want to check your personality, and that's why he will initially bring you at ease. Puri ease pe ladega. That, and you start feeling that everything is going good. That means what I truly am, they are appreciating it. And then your true self comes out. Okay, and then you speak out something that actually reflects your true self, and that will be reflected in the marks accordingly. Okay, so they definitely want that true self to come out. You spoke something, they understood that this is your true self. They will pick that thing, they will appreciate this, they will give you cues that they are liking it, and then आपकी body lose हो जाएगी. You start feeling free, and then you will keep blabbering about it, and then बस फिर वहाँ पे आपका काम खत्म, because they now understood what you truly are. But what happens? Like we actually prepare, we are acting in a very formal manner, not showing our true self. Okay, now they will make you at ease, so that none of the opinions are being judged, none of the opinions are being, or so what your true self is more or less being appreciated. So you talk about it. Okay, and that is what happens. आपने कई सारे sting operations वगैरह देखे होंगे, कई सारे interviews देखे होंगे, wherein the interviewer, the true interviewer who wants to expose the true self of the other party, he does not interrupt and let the other party speak as long as he wants. And in that continuous speech, the other party reveals all that he was thinking, all that was not revealed till date. So that's why the first process is to rapport building, and the second one is to bring the other party at ease, and then the third one is to ask cultural specific questions or culturally relevant questions. Now, this interview can be of two types mainly. One is structured interview, and the other is unstructured interview. Okay, structured interview is like the questions are already prepared one after the other. Okay, unstructured is the answer of first will actually decide the next question. So it might go in any direction. Like your UPSC interview is more like an unstructured interview. That whatever you answer, okay, that might bring up the new question, or they might create some kind of follow-up questions on that particular issue. Okay, that is unstructured one. The structured one is one after the other. The questions are pre-decided. More or less, your viva are structured. Say there are 5-6 questions of a particular topic, a particular experiment. After दो पूछे जाएंगे, any two, and you just have to answer it. Okay, these are out of the 5-6 questions, only 1 or 2 will be asked to you, and you have to answer it. If you answer it properly, you get the marks. That's a structured interview. And then here, the answer of the first actually decides the follow-up. Okay, the unstructured one. Next one is questionnaires and schedule. Sorry? Questionnaires and schedules. So what is, as the name suggests, questionnaire क्या है? It's a list of questions, and schedule is also a list of questions. Okay, now what is the difference between question and schedule? So questionnaire will be sent to the group and has to be filled by the respondents themselves. They have to be filled by the respondents by themselves. आपने questionnaire भेज दिया, they will just read it and they will fill it. And that's why, since the questionnaire is to be filled by the respondent, it should be easy to understand. Else, if the question is difficult, they might not answer it at all. So the question should easily be able to understand. So the respondent should easily be able to understand what is asked in the question. It should not be too complicated. Okay. Second, it should be according to the level of respondent. Okay. Then the third one, there should not be threatening or embarrassing questions. Easy to understand or self-explanatory. Then according to the level of the respondents. And the third one, there should not be any threatening or embarrassing questions. So questionnaires we use it today also. You actually go to a restaurant. What might happen? They might come with a feedback form. That's a questionnaire. So it has 5 questions, 6 questions. And how do you like our service? How was the food? What was the behavior? How was the behavior of the waiter? Or how do you like the ambience? And so on and so forth. Okay. And then the options are also, that is showing all the varieties. Now what happens, like if they give you the option like good, not good. So there is a problem. Okay. Okay. Or they give you the option like 10 or 1. या तो बहुत ही अच्छा है या तो कतई घटिया है. कभी से कुछ option नहीं है. Then there is a problem. You just cannot answer this question. Okay. And you will be like, this questions are more embarrassing in nature. Like if you do not like it completely, but you do not want to give 100% marks, you have only one option 1. तो सामने बैठे देख रहा होगा. तो बाहर मिल. Okay. So that is the questionnaires. Now in case of schedule, these questions are to be filled with the assistance of the researcher. So assistance of the researcher. The researcher will guide you how what this question actually means and what has to be given or answered in this particular question. Okay, so censuses or surveys, they are the schedules. So the Janganna wale aate, so they have a long list of questions, and the census official will actually ask you that question, explain you the meaning, and then basically record the data. Okay. Moreover, suppose if you have to open a bank account or a policy, okay, they have very complicated questions. They seek some complicated information that's beyond the understanding of any individual. Okay, and now that's why you require the assistance of a particular agent to fill this forms, this policy forms, or these insurance forms, or say some bank account forms. Okay, you require the assistance, and this is what is called as schedules. Okay. Now the next one is case study method. What is a case study? As we already discussed, it's a deeper study or in detail study of a particular social unit. Any social unit, any event, any phenomena, if it is understood or it's basically analyzed in detail, then it is called as the case study. So basically there are certain characteristics of it. For example, it's a descriptive study, descriptive explanation. Second, it's narrowly focused. That means it's not concerned about other things around it, but only focusing upon that particular aspect, narrowly focused on that particular event, phenomena, or unit of the society. And then it combines both objective and subjective data. Okay, both kind of data. Objective data, maybe suppose if you want to identify the female infanticide cases in Haryana or in a particular district in Haryana. Okay, now that's a case study. You are only focusing upon the female infanticide. That is one particular social phenomena that you want to know. Now you will be taking, say, detailed study maybe by hospital records. That is, say, some objective data. Okay, or quantitative data. So hospital records, how many births have happened, and what is the sex ratio, and so on and so forth. And then you will be also doing some kind of subjective studies wherein you will be interacting with the households there. Households where you will be taking up the opinions of the male, you will be taking up the opinions of the females. Okay, or maybe you might be having some informant who might not want to disclose the information, disclose his name or identity, but might be telling you the true picture that what is actually happening in the society. Okay, so that is the objective and subjective data both will be taken up in order to understand the particular social unit, phenomena, or an event. Okay, now it has some advantages. So basically, the first advantage is it actually is a mechanism for intensive in-depth analysis of a particular phenomena. कोई भी particular phenomena, say female infanticide only, or say liquor consumption, that can also be understood by this case study method. Or say you can talk about marriages. We'll be talking about certain case studies related to marriage. One of the very famous case studies is that of Kathleen Gow, study of marriages in Nayars of Kerala. Okay, so that's one of the very famous case studies. Okay, so plus the case study of Jamni's funeral, the case study of Valney's cockfight, the case study of Pullaring ceremony. So that is providing an intense, in-depth analysis of a particular phenomena that might not be available through in general studies. Say, पूरे culture को study कर रहे हो, you might not be giving that much importance to that particular event or phenomenon. Next one, it can also collect information pertaining to sensitive areas. Okay, the same advantages that is available through interview, the same will be valid here also. Sensitive areas के बारे में it can help you pertain certain kind of information. Just like you can take the example of this child marriage, okay, or say in female infanticide, or liquor consumption, or maybe drug consumption in Punjab that is going on right now. So if you conduct a case study over there, so how drug addiction actually starts, or maybe one case study that is currently being done, that how this drug racket is actually related to conversion cartels. So Christianity is spreading in Punjab at a very faster rate. Okay, and the rate is so high that unofficial data says that more than 17% of Punjab's population is Christian. Okay, that is the rate. And there is a term called as crypto Christians. Okay, that is the one basically who are keeping their name as Sikh or Hindus but having Christian identity. Okay, now one case is going on in Supreme Court that is talking about that Christians and Muslims should also get SC status. Now this is the only reason that crypto Christianity actually exists, that they are SCs, and if they proclaim their religion officially as Christian, they lose their benefits as SCs, and that's why they are basically proclaiming their religion officially on paper as Hindus or Sikh, yet practicing Christianity in say private domain. So there was a web series that was released very recently, Cat Abhi Randi Putta Ki Galti, that is talking about the drug cartel, in which there is a police woman. Okay, you see that woman, एक police woman का role किया है उसने, that she actually practices, she's belonging to a low caste Hindu and actually practices Christianity in her household, yet takes the name of a Hindu. Okay, that is completely connected. The funding is actually, it's believed that the funding is actually related to that drug cartel also. So that drug cartel, addiction, rehabilitation centers, reformation, and conversion. That cycle goes on. Okay, so this is some people are there working upon it, and that's how. And crypto Christians are those people जिन लोगों ने private domain में they're practicing. And it is said that Charanjit Singh Channi, the former CM of Punjab, actually he was also crypto Christian. It is said that you might find several incidences of him, and एक उसका आपको भी देखना जो संदीप के साथ इंटरव्यू हुआ है उसका, तो उसके घर में पीछे you'll find the say portraits of Christ. Okay, that's a strange phenomena. I'm not saying that a single person can have it, but usually it's a strange phenomena to find the portrait of Christ, Jesus Christ, in the house of a Sikh. Very very strange phenomena. बहुत rare. ऐसा normally होता नहीं है. Although everybody is secular, ठीक है, we can go to the church or something, but have the portrait of Christ in the house, थोड़ा सा strange है. And all बहुत सारे cases हैं. That is Charanjit Singh Channi is crypto Christian only. Okay, now that is what is actually going on, and that case studies, if it is done on that aspects, can actually give information on these sensitive areas as well. Okay, next one, the third one, that is can help understand social changes. For example, one very important social change that happened in the caste relationship post-independence. So there are several case studies related to it. That is case study on Green Revolution, impact of Green Revolution. Okay, so Green Revolution played a very important role in altering the inter-caste relationship happening in the villages. Earlier, it was say the so-called Brahmins or Kshatriya who were the landowners. But later on, what happened? That the land reforms happened, the land was redistributed, and then Green Revolution made agriculture a remunerative occupation. And that's why there was a lot of migration of the Begaris or say the SCs or Dalits from UP and Bihar to Punjab and Haryana. And this gave the entire dependency of the lower caste or say the Dalits on the upper caste reduced in UP and Bihar. Now they had got a formal job which was highly paying as compared to what they had in their own village in UP and Bihar. And that's how the intercaste relationship completely altered. Okay. Plus there was a rise of the dominant caste in Punjab, Haryana, Jats, Khatris and all. And these are called as by Rodolphe called as bullock capitalists. Okay. A new term was introduced, bullock capitalists. That is the one who basically are holding a lot of money because of the impact of the Green Revolution plus agriculture becoming a remunerative occupation. So that was the case that happened post 1960s to 1990 LPG reforms till the time LPG reforms. Okay. Now can help understand the social changes, the detailed study. The next one it's just a repetition. Specific aspect of the society, okay, or a specific part of the social unit can be understood in detail. It means just physical repetition here, just one more point. Okay, so these are some of the advantages. Next one is the limitation of case study. The first one that it's difficult for or it's not possible to use case study for generalization. You basically studied a single unit in detail. How can you use it for generalization, theorization? It's very difficult. Okay, the next one is that too much of subjectivity is involved in the case study method. Okay, that how people interpret it, how the researcher actually interpret it, understand it, that is subjectivity is there. Next one, time taking and costly. Okay, so these are some of the limitations for case studies. Now we have the examples of it: Kulawing ceremony, Javanese funeral, Balinese cockfight, or say puberty rituals in Dembu by Victor Turner. So these are some specific case studies, that is the events studied in detail by the scholars. Okay, now the next one is genealogical method. Genealogical method. So genealogy simply means the family chart or the family history. Okay. So here what we do is we basically construct the family records or the family charts. Okay. In order to study various aspects related to a particular family or a particular lineage, say kinship, inheritance, political succession. And we will also be using this genealogy, but with a different name in physical anthropology. This is called as pedigree analysis. Okay, that is with a different name. This genealogy, that family chart, will be used to understand the pattern of inheritance of a particular disease. That is what is called as pedigree analysis. Now, this genealogy was first used by a scholar. Remember this name, W.H.R. Rivers, who studied Todas, and he used this genealogical method only to study Todas and the kinship practices among Todas. And since then, genealogical method became the standard mechanism to study the kinship practices in any society. Okay, that is the genealogy. Now, there are certain symbols that are used in genealogy that mean something. Okay, so the symbols are, for example, this represents male, this represents female, this represents marriage, this, and then represents children. Okay, and then means death, crossing out. Okay, and then we'll be using a general symbol like this, ego. Okay, that is the person with respect to whom we study a family. Okay, so this is the simple idea of genealogy. Now, genealogy, it basically can give us a lot of information about the pattern of deaths. Okay, also about the naming ceremonies, or also the migration. If somebody has left the house, or if somebody has actually come to a particular area, so that migration can be understood by genealogy. But there are certain limitations in this genealogical method. The one limitation is repetition of names. So in simple societies, the names gets repeated. Okay, and not repeated. So a clip देखिए आपने Steve की आती है that family feud with that's a very famous show, American show, Family Feud with Steve. हाँ, Obu. Yes, yes. So there was a family. इसमें लड़के का नाम था Obu. Father's name was Obu Obu, and grandfather's name was Obu Obu Obu. Okay, that is the repetition of name with respect to say in the same family, or say that's very common in American society also. Say somebody XYZ junior, XYZ senior. That is how they actually name, or the grandfather will be sharing the same name and so on and so forth. So this is very common. Second problem happens when certain taboos are associated with taking names. Taboos associated with taking name as if that any individual cannot take the name of the dead ancestors. They have such kind of taboos. और जैसे हमारे होता है ना कि पत्नी पति का नाम नहीं ले सकती. So if such kind of taboos are there, so that taboos of taking the name of the dead ancestors, and that's why it's difficult to create that genealogy. And the third major problem is indeterminate fatherhood because of their sexual fluidity. So fatherhood is indeterminate. So the woman might be having sexual relationship with multiple men, and that's why it's difficult to determine who actually the father is. And moreover, they might not have the concept of biological fatherhood. So then to create genealogy becomes very difficult. Okay, so that is certain limitation. Now, one very interesting fact about this genealogy in India, that there are certain genealogical records that are kept all over India and maintained by certain pandits or priests, say like in Haridwar. Okay, so the pandas, they basically maintain the genealogical record, that is what is called as Vahis. Vahi. So Vahi ka ek distorted dialect version hai, Vahi kehte hain. So, and you can actually find your ancestors maybe to 20-25 generations in that. So all you have to do is you just have to go there, you have to contact a pandit who actually handles the records of your gotra. And you can just then actually tell your gotra and apne dada ya pardada ka naam bataoge, so he might actually look into it and then can tell you that you come from this lineage and actually can tell you the name of 10, 20 or 25 generations. So I happen to visit. So normally these are the places where the last rites of the people are actually done. So wahi maintain ki jati hai. Say Haridwar, Chintapurni, and another place that is Kurukshetra. So there you will find the Vahis being maintained by the local pandas. Okay, and that's too heavy and too complicated a document. And now the government has actually started the process of say digitizing it, so that these data actually can be used and can actually be used for some. But that means some other processes maybe किसी न किसी तरीके से आगे help करें हमें. Okay, so that is the genealogical record, and this is something that was practiced in several societies also. For example, Khasis, they have a practice of maintaining the genealogical records, and a normal Khasi can actually tell you the name of 10 generations of his ancestors. यहाँ पे एक practice है. Samoans also have this habit of maintaining this genealogical record, and a normal Samoan can tell you the name of at least 20 generations of his ancestors. Okay, they have this record. Okay, so this is the case of genealogical records. Next one is life history. So these life histories are simply biographical or autobiographical accounts that are used for study of a society. Okay, so basically it's exploring certain individuals' lives in order to understand what kind of society was at that point of time, what kind of changes that were happening at that particular point of time, and what were the factors that actually led to these changes. So some kind of society के बारे में जानना past में, or any kind of changes that has happened post or say during the time of that individual, or the factors that were responsible for it. That is what his life history does. Remember the case of Cora Dubois. So he basically recorded 8 biographies and sent it to Brancardino. Okay, so that biographies or life histories was recorded and was analyzed by Cora Dubois to understand the modal personality of Aloris. Okay, now life histories, this is relatively less used because the problem is with respect to simple societies that life histories are very rarely available. People do not have it. Moreover, even if they have it, they do not have it in written records. It is more available in the oral stories. Say maybe some folk stories might be there, folk tales might be there, or say some legendary stories might be there, and that might more be like mythological, more sound like a myth rather than an actual life history. Okay, but one very famous case study that is with respect to life history, use of life history, is done by Clifford Geertz in his study of a Balinese town called as Negara. Okay, just like this, the study of Clifford Geertz, in the book Negara, the theatre state in 19th century. Negara, the theatre state in 19th century. This was a Balinese state. Which according to Geertz, was not a hydraulic bureaucracy, nor an oriental despotism, but rather an organized civilization. Okay, so here what Clifford Geertz is saying that Negara was not an hydraulic bureaucracy. If you remember, we have talked about this hydraulic theory of state formation, Cartwright-Fogel, British School of Diffusion. So G. Smith ने इसको use किया था to explain the rise of Egypt. So what this hydraulic theory suggests is that state or civilization is nothing but an outcome of administrative requirement to maintain a large-scale hydraulic project. And that's why the first king would have been the hydraulic engineers or the civil engineers. Okay, so that is the hydraulic theory of state formation. That state or civilization is nothing but an outcome of administrative requirement of hydraulic projects. Okay, he said that nothing of that sort happened in Negara. कोई large-scale irrigation projects were not created. The second thing is Orientalist despotism. So Orientalist means that is any knowledge about the East. Orientalism things. And despotism means a condition of the society in which one person is actually the most powerful and ruling the society. That is despotism. So he says that it is not hydraulic bureaucracy, nor it is an Orientalist despotism, that is something in which one man is owning the society, but rather an organized form of civilization. That is, it is challenging the opinion of the West about the civilizations in the East, that they were created either by force or maybe because of irrigation, something like that. No, they had that rationality, and that was created by that rationality by the collective consciousness of the people coming together and creating a state-like organization. That is what Clifford Geertz talk about in case of Negara. Neither hydraulic bureaucracy nor Orientalist despotism. Okay, the another one, life history, is study of Ruth Behr. So what she observed, she wrote a book. Vulnerable observer, in which she has used her own life history to explain her journey as an anthropologist. So it's more like an autoethnography as well as the life history. Okay, so what she actually talks about, that she is a Cuban Jewish. That is the biggest problem that she had. Born in Cuba and belonging to Jewish community. So Jewish is pure capitalist, okay, and actually surviving on the support of America, Israel and all. And Cuba, basically an complete anti-country of America, against America, and a supporter of Russia. So you must have heard about this Cuban Missile Crisis. And since then, Cuba and America, they are always at loggerhead with each other. And Cuba is still seen to be one of the biggest threat to America, because if a second world war, say third world war happens between America and US, the first country to support Russia would be Cuba. Okay, and that's also considered to be one of the biggest threat to America. And इसकी वजह से आप देखो क्यूबा की जो इकोनॉमी की हालत है अभी पूरी की पूरी अमेरिका की वजह से. So you can buy, you have to be ultra rich to buy a car in Cuba. Okay, so all the exports from any Cuban company, they are prohibited. Nobody is actually importing anything from the Cuban company. Moreover, Cuba has also reciprocated by imposing a large amount of import duty on any product that is coming from America. So you have a छोटी सी Hyundai Santro car that would cost you, if I talk about Indian money, so that would cost you around 30 to 40 lakhs in Cuba. Santro car. Okay, so that is the problem that this woman was facing. That being part of a religion that was actually supportive of America, or actually getting support from America or Western countries, capitalist countries, but at the same time having a Cuban nationality. So these two identities were at loggerhead with each other, and that actually was impacting every step that she was taking in her profession. So she has used her life history to explain her journey as an anthropologist and the difficulties that she faced in her professional life. Okay, that is the book A Vulnerable Observer. Through the head. Okay, so this is about the life history. Now, the next method that we'll see is sampling method. So sampling method is used when actually there is a large scale population and you cannot just have the qualitative data by analyzing or studying each and every one of them. Okay, so in that case, you take a sample when the population is large, and that sample acts to be the representative of the population. That sample should be so precisely designed that in a way it represents the population, or say it is said to be the population in microcosm. Okay, so this is mainly used for studying a very large scale population. बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ी population है, उनको study करना है, तो then you use samples. So first, there are different types of samples that are created. First one is random sampling. So random sampling simply means that probability of representation or being selected is equal for everyone. Probability of being selected is equal for all. Now this random sampling was used by Margaret Mead in Coming of Age in Samoa. So in which she interviewed 68 girls, and that were completely random. In the age bracket of 8 to 20, any 68 girls were picked from 3 villages. Random sampling. Okay. The second one is random stratified sampling. So what happens, as the name suggests, stratified, that means the society is divided into some stratas. Okay, and in that case, if these stratas, so you pick up any number, random numbers of people from each of the strata. Okay, so that all the stratas get their due representation in the sample. For example, you want to study the poverty. Now you identify the stratas in which poverty is highly present. For example, like elderly people or unemployed people. Okay, on the third one, single parent families. So these are the 3 stratas you identified. Select, say, X number of elderly people, or say select number of elderly people as per their proportion in the society. Select the number of unemployed families, say people, as per their proportion in the society, and then select single parent families into the sample as per their proportion in the society. So that is what is called as random stratified sample. That each strata contributes to the sample as per its proportion in society or weightage in the society. Random stratified sample. So Franz-Boas actually used this sampling method while studying Native Americans. Several Native Americans he studied by using random stratified samples, and he also use this method for racial studies. We'll talk about it. For racial studies in America, he uses random stratified sample. Okay. The third one, ये तो basically कुछ cultural phenomena की वजह से strata बना होगा. हाँ. Then the third one, it's a type of stratified sampling only, that is called as cluster sampling. So here, the cluster sampling usually is used when population is divided in clusters, and these clusters are naturally occurring. Population is divided into clusters, and these clusters are naturally occurring. So some random clusters will be selected. So what might happen that if the population is very much dispersed, so एक hilly area में गए, and you're finding that there are 5 huts here, 5 clusters of huts here, and 5 houses there, 5 somewhere else. So clusters हैं. So what you do, you just cannot move from one place to another and study all of them. You just randomly select 3 clusters. This north में 1 cluster, east में 1 cluster, south में 1 cluster, and west में 1 cluster, and then collectively say all those houses in that particular cluster might be selected. So for example, other example can be that if you want to study, say, managers in a particular company, managers across the companies. So managers automatically make a cluster in the company. Say there will be several managers in one company, and then second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on and so forth. What you do, you randomly select few of the companies, 5 companies, and then you pick all the managers, the cluster of managers from there, and study them. Okay, so that is how the cluster sampling is basically done. When the population is so much dispersed and settling in different clusters, and then you randomly select some clusters and observe them, create some kind of data. Okay, so cluster sampling was actually done. One example of it is by Clifford Geertz in study of Indonesians. Next one is snowball sampling. Snowball, you understand? So this is you must have seen that snowball effect, that a ball of snow actually starts falling from the top of the hill, and as it moves downward, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, that is the snowball effect. In the same way, snowball sampling, the sample or the population, the target population that you want to study is not clear or not clearly visible. Actually, now what you do is the first informant actually gives you the clue about the next informant, and then they would actually give you the clue about the further informant. So आपने एक को पूछा, एक से इंटरव्यू लिया, उसने किसी और के बारे में बताया. The second person will actually tell you about the third, and then that is how the chain actually grows up. That is what is called as snowball sampling. Just like this, snowball sampling happens when there is a limited access. Happens when there is a limited access to the community. To the community. It starts initially with a small group. Starts initially with a small group, which then refer to other informants, creating a snowball effect. Which then refer to other informants, creating a snowball effect. Okay. Now, one example of this is a study that was done by a scholar, Nancy Shepherd Hughes, in order to identify or in order to actually expose illegal organ or traffic cartel. So human trafficking cartel and organ transplant cartel. So she wanted to expose it. So what she did not know who was a part of it, but actually connecting the chains or connecting the dots. You will also be doing it when you'll be in IPS or something like that. So you do not know who the person is, but that is how the snowball effect actually works. You identify one person, that person will tell you about the other, and then that will be telling you about the next, and that is how you actually create the links and finally reach to the ultimate source. Okay, that is the Nancy Shepherd Hughes actually did. The other one is a study by Richard Parker, who actually used the snowball effect to identify the risk of HIV in Brazilian transgender. Now, what was happening? That in Brazil, that these transgenders are engaged in prostitution, and they were having a high rate of HIV. But the problem is due to stigma, nobody actually expresses it. Nobody actually goes for the treatment. Okay, so this Brazilian transgenders, he identified one person who would then inform about the other, and then the third one, and so on. In which, in the research, he was able to highlight the prevalence of HIV among the transgenders because of the profession that they are engaged in. Plus, due to the stigma that they are not able to express, plus they are not able to actually avail any kind of treatment, and that's why there is a higher mortality among them. So that is using the snowball sampling. So there are multiple other types of sampling like area sampling, multi-stage sampling, and all. This is just some of them. You just have to mention the names. I hardly doubt that it will come as a 10-mark question ever. Okay. So these are some of the tools. That's it for today. We'll be talking about some other aspects. That is participatory rural appraisal, participatory learning, and action appraise in the next class. Okay. And finally, we decided physical anthropology. Okay.